would have to submit this form, and that includes if it's totally funded by an outside entity. Is that correct?
Chairman Rudd.
Well, it's partially correct. This is only the administrative election. This is not the election commission or staff. This is only the administrative elections. Of course, they are the ones responsible for overseeing the staff and overseeing and reporting back to the county election commission. And they're the most important part of the local since they actually run the office. As far as if they use outside funds or state or county or federal funds, they're to report that. And again, this is accountability and transparency. The public and the state election commission needs to know what's going on and who could be influencing, whether it be on the left or the right. I don't know what first time I ever heard anything about a foreign power. That's not the purpose of the bill, but this is to simply let people know and full transparency of what is going on inside the election commission when they travel outside the state for training or education purposes.
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So and this goes to as I read it here, the State Election Commission. Can they reject this? Can they refuse to? Can they reject it so it cannot be paid by the state or any other governmental entity?
Chairman Rudd.
This doesn't account for that. Those rules are already in place. Of course, the State Election Commission and the individual state election commissioners, both Democrat and Republican, are in charge of appointing people within their region. Whether they reappoint those people or not would be up to them, and they take in a variety of reasons why they make those decisions. As far as whether they can limit an administrator, currently the State Election Commission has authority to do a lot on what goes on with the administrator that they appoint. So that would be up to them under any current law. This is just simply making a report. This is not providing punishment or dismissal. This is simply requiring them to report to the State Election Commission their activities.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the list is Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, the election commission, the local election commission budget is part of the county budget, I believe. Is that correct?
Chairman.
Yes.
Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel like this bill is needed and is good because of, like you say, the transparency. How much time is the administrator spending in the office? If they are going to meetings, what are the meetings about? Is it training? I think this bill is needed in many ways. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, just so I'm reading this correctly, if the administrator of elections attends a training, seminar, conference, or other educational event related to elections, and such event is outside the state, and county, state, or federal funds are used, they must fill the form out. Is that correct?
Chairman Rudd.
Yes, sir.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, for example, if the administrative elections in Tennessee, one of our counties, attends the Congressional Black Caucus in Washington, D.C., uses county funds to travel there, and there is a panel on increasing the voter turnout for persons 18 to 30. If they don't fill the form out, are they in violation of the law if this passes?
Chairman Rudd.
Well, as Section 1, Item A says, if an administrator of elections attends a training, seminar, or conference or other educational event related to elections, such event is outside, and it's outside the state, the administrator of elections must file a form prescribed by the coordinator of elections, reporting at a minimum the following, and we've already gone over what they have to report. If they're just attending a conference, no. If it's about education or about training, yes, they'd have to report that regardless of the organization, whether it be partisan, nonpartisan, nonprofit, they'd have to report that.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just so I'm clear, as long as the conference is not solely about elections, but just may happen to have a panel on elections, then they would not be in violation. Is that correct?
Chairman Rudd.
As it's described here, however, the state election commission can extend this to whatever is under their authority. If they want to go beyond this, or if they want to ask more, that's up to them. This is at a minimum what we're requiring.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next on the list is Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, are we working on the amendment 016897?
06987.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Or 897.
Okay, 89. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
To the Representative Chairman Rudd, my administrative election is Linda Phillips, appointed by the Republicans on the commission, which I think is 3 or 5. How many administrators of elections do we have in the state?
Chairman Rudd.
Well, to my knowledge, we have one in each county unless there's a vacancy.
Okay, about 95 of those. And I'm leaning toward supporting the bill because one thing you continue to say, transparency. That's what we're actually after, transparency. And in fact, once this form is completed, the administrators to turn this form in to the coordinator of elections. Is that correct?
Chairman Rudd.
No, the coordinator of elections is prescribed in the bill as preparing the form. They would report to the state election commission, which I believe meets quarterly at least, perhaps more, but they would, I guess, review these when they meet. But they'd report to the state election commission, fill the form out and give it to them. And then I would assume it would first go to the actual individual election commissioners that are over the area in question. And then they would probably report to the state election commission when they meet.
Representative Miller.
And if a member of let's say, this committee wanted to have access to that information, could we get that information?
Chairman Rudd.
That would be public access, yes. It would probably also be in the, I would assume it would be in the minutes of the meeting, and you could ask your individual election commissioner for access to those, that information as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Rudd.
Next on the list is Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move previous question.
Previous question's been called. We're ready to vote on House Bill 1799 without objection. All those in favor of moving House Bill 1799 on to calendar and rules, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill will move on to calendar and rules. If you'd like to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk. All right, item 2 on today's agenda is House Bill 1955 by Chairman Rudd. Got a proper motion and second. Chairman Rudd, I do see that we have a amendment on this bill. Would you please give us your drafting code?
15735.
That is correct. Do I have a motion on the amendment? Proper motion and second. Would you like for us to place the amendment on the bill for discussion?
Yes, sir, it makes a bill.
Without objection, we're voting on amendment 15735 going on to House Bill 1955. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill is now amended. You're recognized on your amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, committee. What this does, this bill amends the procedures for conducting voter registration drives. Currently, persons or individuals conducting the drive may not set quotas or pay based on the number of voters registered. Voter registration forms must be turned in 15 days after being collected. or by the voter registration deadline if not sooner. Copying or retaining a applicant's information without their consent is prohibited under the bill, as no one should be allowed to do that. It clarifies that the date of the voter registration is signed and is presumed to be the date a person or organization collected the form for purposes of calculating the deadline to turn the form in. Section 2 adds the following new prohibitions on persons or organizations conducting voter registration drives. Voter registration forms cannot be pre-filled in. Only the voter should be filling the forms in, not the organization or the worker, to be given to the applicant, unless a government agency is fulfilling its duties, such as helping a handicapped person, or the Department of Safety at a kiosk. A person convicted of a felony defined in the election code, which is, again, the only felony of those convicted of felonies that are prohibited from participating in this, are those that have been convicted of exploitation of the elderly and the vulnerable persons, and those of violating election laws. No other felonies are in this bill. They are not to be collected or handled voter registration. After all, we don't want someone that's been convicted of abusing elderly and vulnerable people or violating election laws handling election forms. A person, and by the way, if you want to do a background check, it's only about $35 and very easy to do in Tennessee. A person or organization collecting voter registrations shall not alter the form, the voter registration form, of any person without that person's knowledge or consent. And the State Election Commission retains the right to impose civil penalties. Those penalties means that pre-filling out forms would carry a maximum fine of $50 per violation. Allowing individuals convicted of felonies that I just listed, those taking advantage of the elderly and vulnerable and violating state election laws, would be a severe penalty, and it could be $5,000 per violation. And by the way, this is actually quite low. Other states that have passed similar legislation has a $50,000 per event violation. Penalties are reviewable under the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act. And Mr. Chairman, that is the bill. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I forgot to announce that Chairman Rudd would be presenting this bill from the diocese, so he had permission to do so. I just did not announce it. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote on House Bill 1955. All right, apparently we have testimony, so without objection, we'll go out of session and we'll hear from Macy Fluharty. I hope that's right. Ms. Fluharty, you will turn your mic on, see the red light, give us your name and who you're with, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Macy Fluharty. I'm a Davidson County resident. I've probably helped dozens of people register to vote in Tennessee. I imagine it is not so easy for someone to steal a voter's information at a registration event, given both the crowd and the booth workers around them. While amending this bill, lawmakers left in stipulations that people charged with certain felonies in the past may not be part of the registration process. This decision reinforces the stigma that incarcerated people cannot be trusted, which is ironic considering this body's public presidential support for someone charged with more than a handful of felonies. This bill solves no current problems, and on the condition our prison systems utilize rehabilitation and post-stay support, this likely doesn't solve realistic future problems. Community involvement reduces recidivism. We should be encouraging people to interact with our community. This includes people who are looking to redeem themselves within our society. In the volunteer state, this bill would require organizations to turn away people who may be excited about their involvement with their community and politics for a crime they could have committed far in the past. This bill does not specify if a constituent may ever be allowed to volunteer in this way after a certain amount of time has passed, making it so someone could still be paying for a crime they may have committed in 10 years in their past. On top of this stipulation, using judgmental stigmas to deny volunteers, it adds a burden onto organizations that offer voter registration. These organizations would need to pay for background checks before each registration event. $35 per person adds up, especially for a nonprofit that does not have the funds to keep up. Not only is this costly, but it could turn up with incorrect information. Should an organization be giving incorrect information, that nonprofit could be forced to pay thousands of dollars they likely wouldn't have. Part of rehabilitating back into society is community involvement, which in turn can reduce recidivism. Should someone be passionate about getting out the vote, we would need to deny them the opportunity to use their passion and their integration back into society. Beyond this, organizations could be affected by this bill just for being given incorrect information. This bill does not fix any current issues. It only further punishes formerly incarcerated people who have already paid their dues while putting organizations on the hook for receiving incorrect information. Please amend this bill or vote no.
Thank you, Ms. Flaherty. Any questions for the speaker? Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't get your name again.
Macy Fluharty.
Okay, thank you. This bill has more to do with, formerly incarcerated individual. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
I mean, it deals with, let me ask you this question. Are you a member of any organized organization?
Yes.
That,
Ms. Flaherty.
Sorry.
yes.
Mhm.
So what has been your experience in trying to get people registered to vote?
Normally we'll have a booth set up at like Tomato Fest or something like that. And we'll see people interested in our booth. We'll talk them about the importance of registering to vote. A lot of times we'll come across people that have just moved to Tennessee and haven't had the time to register to vote. There's usually at least a few people working the booth, as many as we can get to volunteer. But it's a pretty crowded area. We normally always have a common goal of just getting out the vote and interacting with our community. And
Representative Miller.
So I'm assuming over the time you may have registered thousands of individuals in this state. I don't know. But it's something that may happen if you register a person, submit that name to the Election Commission. It's a kickback to find out that it's a fraud or anything like that. What are you experiencing?
You recognize Ms. Flaherty.
Yeah, it brings down the motion of getting people more involved. It causes people to sometimes miss their deadline to register to vote.
But it's been positive in your experience.
Oh, the
people are
act
actually
of
being
registering to
registered
vote.
and actually getting an
Oh, yeah.
opportunity to vote in the state.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Martin. Do you have a question for the speaker?
No, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for legal.
Okay. Chairman Moon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the speaker. Do you know which felonies are actually in the bill?
Yes, there is an election fraud felony and mistreating the elderly. I forget the exact
Finan-
wording.
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Chairman Moon.
Financial exploitation of the elderly. And with the information that's placed upon voter registration, I can see where this could be a concern about making these people vulnerable. I share your passion. We need better turnout in Tennessee, voter turnout, and that starts with registration. And applaud what you do, but we must have guardrails. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion. We go back in session.
We have more speakers to speak. So can you rescind that motion?
Yes, sir. I'll rescind the motion.
Thank you. The next speaker on the list is Mark Goins. Would you please come to the table? You have a question for this? Okay. Okay, just a moment. Representative Love, you're recognized to ask the question to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. In your experience with working with voter registration, have you found that those persons who engage in helping others get registered have engaged in any situations where they have intentionally done something wrong to cause problems in the registration process?
Ms. Fluharty?
Nothing that I can recall. Usually goes pretty smooth. There's never any gray area that people cross into, in my opinion.
Representative Love?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you find that the voter registration process may be one of the ways that persons who have felons can participate in the election process because they themselves may not be able to vote but can register someone else to vote?
Ms. Fluharty?
Yes, I think it's a great alternative for somebody who's lost those kinds of rights to be able to stay present in the election process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions for this speaker, thank you for being with us today, and hang around in case some of the people may have questions for you later. At this time, I'll recognize Coordinator of Election, Mark Goins.
Yes, Mark Goins, Coordinator of Elections. Actually, I'd forgotten I'd signed up. But anyway, we have had instances. In fact, Representative Love, I'm sure you know Pastor Enoch Fuzz, who is in Davidson County, very well known. A few years ago, a very troubling issue happened with him specifically. There was a group that was attempting to register individuals to vote. They got his information, and they submitted multiple voter registration forms on his behalf. It was caught because essentially each form that was submitted had a different address. And essentially what we found out was at that time, and there was legislation that was sought to address some of these issues, and Chairman Rudd is coming in to, basically complement what the legislature's already done. But essentially at that time, we found out that these organizations were paying by quotas. And so essentially once someone got his information, they were able to go out there and replicate that. And he was just one of many instances that we had that's done this. Now, I would like to address the felony part because it is very narrowly tailored. And specifically, it talks about two types of felonies. And these are the folks that, when you get a voter registration form, you have everyone's personal data. You have their social security number, you have their name, their date of birth, you have all of those things. The two felonies that this addresses, one is if you've committed aggravated perjury, which means that you have lied on a document and it's material to the thing that you've lied about. Not just perjury, but aggravated perjury. And then the other thing, as Chairman Rudd has already said, exploitation of someone who is vulnerable, the elderly. These are the folks that would not be permitted to go out and get voter registration forms. These are also the folks, it's just common sense, that you would not want to handle this type of information on behalf of someone. I mean, that's just common sense to me. I mean, if someone were coming out to your family's home and they were trying to get them registered to vote, if you found out that they were guilty of aggravated elderly abuse, taking advantage of the elderly, or they're vulnerable, would you want them to assist your parent? Would you want them to assist someone in your family? I don't think so. And so essentially this bill is very narrowly tailored to accomplish the goal of ensuring that voters, when they're registering to vote, they're truly registering to vote, that they can trust these individuals. The other thing that it does is this. We've had an instance where we had some folks at a college here where they were doing a voter registration drive, except they turned in the voter registration forms after the deadline. Well, we have a deadline. We had to go by that deadline. And unfortunately, those individuals that they turned them in late for couldn't vote. What this says is already an existing law. If you turn in, if you collect a voter registration form, you're taking on the responsibility to get it there timely so that person can vote. And so we didn't have a real mechanism to say what was timely. And timely in the statute prior to this was already 15
Mr.
days.
Goins,
I'm over.
Your time is up. Representative Shaw, I have you on the list, but since the conversation was with Representative Love, I'm going to keep it in context and let him follow up his question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your illustration you gave, just to follow up to that question. So just so I'm clear, with Pastor Fuzz, for an example, there were multiple registrations turned in with his name, but just different addresses. Okay,
That's correct.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Ms. Goins. Thank both of you. What you just explained to me really says that we're doing one heck of a job because we caught all those folk without this bill. So you just explained why we don't need this bill, because our election integrity is at the top of the list. I know that for a fact because I've served. I mean, what more do we want but honesty? And when you look at Tennessee, we got honesty. I mean, can you explain what are we looking for?
Mr. Goins.
Well, and this is where you and I've worked together because you know you've had a situation in your county where
Sure.
we had a person that was taking advantage of individuals. And actually, there's some language in here that affects that. Now, what you're seeing is different things now. So you want to stay number one, but it's a continuation. And I do appreciate the compliment, and I take it on behalf of the election administrators, and you should take it as well as the General Assembly because you passed those laws. But things change, different ideas approach, and essentially, that's one of the things that we didn't think about in the past is folks that's taking care of the elderly. And actually, this was done in another state. And that's one of the things you learn. You know, I know that you probably a member of various organizations that see things on a national level. To Chairman Rudd's credit, this was his idea. It wasn't mine. But when he came to me with it and started discussing it, I started looking at it because first I was like, if you're going to ban all felonies, and it doesn't sound right because, you know, I do think there's different degrees of felonies. But when you talk about very narrowly tailoring it down to those who have taken advantage of the elderly, I don't know who can be against that, honestly. I mean, that'd be very difficult to be, because I think the general public would say, of course we don't want these folks to have this information. Of course we don't, folks. It's folks that have committed aggravated perjury, not just perjury, but aggravated perjury, which is material to the very matter that they have lied about. So if you will think about what's happening, and I won't go into all the details, but you know we've worked together on an issue, and you solved a problem. You passed a bill that solved a problem. This is all this does. In some instances, it's preventative. In other instances, it's looking at some things that's happened in the past saying we can do better. For example, the date. The date is something where we already had something in the law that was 15 days afterward, but the gentleman, we couldn't figure out necessarily when those forms were filled out other than the applicant saying so.
Representative Shaw.
And I appreciate that. And I'll be brief. I appreciate that very much. But when I look at the integrity of our election commission in Hardeman County, where I live, I really don't see how anybody can take advantage of the elderly, the way the process is set up. And when you go through the line to vote, there's no way anybody can take advantage of the elderly. And I appreciate what you're saying, but I guess I don't know how we fix what's not broken is what I'm getting to. Thank you.
So just to be very clear, we're not talking about when the process of actually voting. We're talking about on the front end when someone's registering to vote, collecting a form with someone's private information. So individuals who have committed these types of felonies would not be allowed to collect that type of information. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about anything else but that. And stuff that's on that voter registration form is all private information.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a hypothetical. We're in election season, and I'm not sure how many of my committee members over time have participated directly or indirectly in voter registration. I've done that. For example, I may have 20, 30 people working the polls during the election for me, et cetera, et cetera. In the process of actually out there campaigning, door to door, whatever, I'm trying to register people because my people may have forms. Just in case they knock on the door, I'm not registered, boom. We got you here. I don't get out there personally and do that, but I may have a campaign manager out there doing that. He may hire these people. Yeah, I hire them, right? If in fact my manager hires someone that has a felon, or it could have gotten an expungement, I don't know. If that be the case, this bill is in law. is it gonna come back to me and I gotta pay $5,000 because my manager hired someone to register someone in my district? Or should I be talking illegal?
Yes. So first, if it's an expungement, it never happened. I mean, under the law, it never happened. So let's say that it has happened, that this person has been guilty. In your hypothetical, your manager hired this individual. Your manager could be subject to the penalty. The folks that would decide that penalty after hearing all the facts and circumstances would be the Bipartisan State Election Commission. Obviously, you all have represented, the Democrat caucus has members, the Republican caucus have members as well. They would sit essentially in as a jury, and then they would decide. And then there's a due process provision in the law that ensures that if, the State Election Commission, I guess, did something they shouldn't, impose too high of a fee under the circumstances, then they can appeal it. They can appeal those processes. But you are correct. I mean, ultimately, it will place a responsibility that you do not have folks out there that's taking advantage of the elderly or committed aggravated perjury.
Representative
I
Miller.
promise you, it wouldn't be my intention, not for a second, to hire or directly or indirectly anyone that's gonna go out and do that. Okay. But did you answer my question? Will I be held harmless as I'm the employer of my manager, and that's how that works out? Will it come back on me? That's the question.
Yeah, in your
Under any
first
circumstances.
Yeah, in your first hypothetical, the manager was the one that hired the person. Whoever hires the individual ultimately would be responsible. The State Election Commission would look at the facts. It could. I mean, if you're the person that hires this individual. But once again, I don't know that. I mean, the converse, having ran an election, having been an elected state legislator at one point, I could see just the opposite. If it were to be disclosed that I had someone that had taken advantage of the elderly, and those folks are out there working and knocking on doors of those who are elderly, I think it would become me to take on that responsibility just for practical reasons, not to have that individual out there representing my campaign. Because, I just don't think the voters, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and that's, as policymakers, you decide those things, but I just don't think the voters or potential voters would enjoy knowing that someone is taking advantage of those who are elderly or out there representing a candidate, getting my private information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. I think we're ready to go back into session. Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a statement and a quick question, because everything I'm hearing, I hear your example to Representative Love. I heard this conversation with Representative Miller, and I think there's a word, and I hear your answers, and everything you're saying is totally correct. But in the legislation, I think there's a word that's missing that you all are referencing, and that's willful. That if we could get that word in here, I think this would be a great bill, because every example that we can come up with is somebody. We're human beings. Believe it or not, we're going to make mistakes. It's who we are. We make on average 5 per hour, believe it or not. So if there's a mistake made, I would hate for that person, an employer, and going up the chain. An honest mistake. Multiple addresses, they're trying to count. This situation, if he knows he or she is registering someone with a felony, that's a willful act. So if we could get that piece of legislation, I'm talking to you and the sponsor, I think that would get to where we're going to be. And then the last thing I'll say is that that bipartisan committee, that 3-2 committee, whatever the numbers is that you meet with, now they have some meat to hang these examples off of. Okay, this person in Jasper, Tennessee, that seemed to be a mistake. This person in Knox County, that was a willful act. You got something to compare it to. This has no real framework. It just said, if you mess up, we're going to look and see whether you did it on purpose or not, but that's probably what you're going to be looking at. So if you put that in the legislation, they did it on purpose, it might go a lot further and be more effective. So thank you.
Mr. Goins.
So the issue, if you put willful in there, you typically see that in criminal statutes. I think that's a loophole you could drive a truck through, because now you're essentially taking the responsibility off the person that's hiring someone. In fact, it might be don't ask, don't tell me, because if you tell me, then it's willful. So I actually think it's just the opposite. I think if you were to put the word willful in there, then you're passing something that's not going to have any teeth in it.
All right, folks, looks like we're ready to go back in session. Without objection, we'll go back in session. And the first person I have on my list is Representative Martin.
Move the previous question.
Previous question has been called. We're ready to vote on House Bill 19. Hang on just a second. At this time, I'll recognize Chairman Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to bring up, due to the holidays, there was a mix-up that I had another amendment, but it had not got back to me, but legal had sent it out. And it is the same exact bill, except it changes the effective date. Right now, it's after the election, and this would make it on becoming law. And I would suggest if we want to do that so we can have this in place for this year's elections rather than making it after the November election.
Are you making that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Second.
And,
We have a proper motion and second for a verbal amendment to change the effective date. Any objection? I see one hand. All those in favor of the verbal amendment going on to House Bill 1955, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. If you'd like to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk. The amendment is on the bill, and we're ready to vote on House Bill 1955. Let me ask legal if they could take those two amendments and roll them into one, please, for next committee. All those in favor of House Bill 1955, moving on to calendar and rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules. Please see the clerk if you'd like to be recorded as a no. Item number 3 on today's agenda is House Bill 2624 by Chairman Carr. We got a proper motion. Is there a second? Second. Got a proper motion and second. Chairman Carr, I do see we have some amendments. Can you please give us your drafting code?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so the first amendment I would like to introduce is 16386.
Proper motion and second on the amendment. Would you like us to place the amendment on the bill for discussion?
Yes, sir, please.
All those in favor of amendment code 16386 going on to House Bill 2624, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill's now amended. You're recognized on your second amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's amendment number 17255.
That is correct. Got a proper motion and second on the amendment. Would you like us to place this on the bill for discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, we're voting on amendment 17255 going on to House Bill 2624 as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill is now amended. You're recognized on your amended bill. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is brought to us by the Tennessee Association of Property Tax Professionals. This bill is a part of a multi-year effort to modernize the property tax collection. It incorporates several cases that have come along. It cures constitutional defects in the Neighborhood Preservation Act. It improves ability to convey blighted parcels of properties, clarifies rules for resales of parcels sold to counties and municipalities, clarifies redemption status, improves ability to collect delinquent taxes, improves service of tax proceedings, and streamlines the collection tax judgments, and clarifies that most priority status of property tax liens. The First Amendment that I'd offered up, what it does, it clarifies up a lot of language, and it helps any of the HOAs that might have a problem with this bill, and also it helps the land banks. The Second Amendment, Mr. Chairman, all it does is tells you that certain sections, they don't take effect until September 1, 2024, but the rest of the bill, all the remaining sections would take effect upon the law, upon becoming law, the public welfare declaring it, requiring it. And of that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for questions.
You've heard the sponsor presenting his bill. Is there any questions? Okay, I have one speaker, Mr. Greg Gallagher. Are you here?
It's okay. They don't say it's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess then, any other questions for the sponsor? The question has been called. We're ready to vote on House Bill 2624 Moving on to finance. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to finance.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Without objection, the chairman will roll this bill to the hill. Item number 5. Without objection, the sponsor has asked that this be rolled 1 week. Without objection, rolled 1 week. Is Chairman Kiesling with us? I do see him. Item number 6 on today's agenda, House Bill 3001 by Chairman Kiesling. I have received a 2/3 majority resolution from the governing body. I do have a proper motion in second, but I do see we have an amending code. Can you please give us your drafting code, sir?
How about, excuse me, 17646, sir.
That is correct. Proper motion and second on the amendment. Would you like us to place this on the bill for discussion?
Please, sir. Thank you.
Okay, without objection, we'll be voting on amendment 17646 going on to House Bill 3001. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, you're recognized on your amended bill.
Thank you so much, Chairman. This was actually brought to me by our city of Oneida. And I have, before, let me also explain the amendment if you would, Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
The amendment does rewrite subsection 15 of section 1 to remove the authority for the city to enact impact fees. The rest of the powers granted by the section and bill would remain intact. Now, I'm going to briefly, I'm just going to give you a quick note here from the mayor, from our town's mayor. Oneida's charter was originally it was originally passed in 1917, therefore very dated. The town's made some minimal changes since that time, but the portion of the charter that addressed the town's ability to specifically own and lease out property was never amended. Upon speaking with MTAS recently, has recommended that the town adopt the model MTAS language, which allows for many abilities that the town can do. Now, even though these abilities are generally codified in TCA, MTAS still recommended that we ask for this amendment to our charter to further clarify these rights. The discussion with MTAS arose because the city owns a sports facility where the high school and the local Boys and Girls Club pay a usage fee, and we rent out that facility for their use. MTAS was worried about the town's liability issues. So therefore, if we didn't have specific language in the charter that addressed our ability to first own the property and second enter into these agreements to rent the facility. What the town is asking members is that to be passed in this model recommendation from MTAS. Now, in general, is to reiterate, the charter is very dated and it needs a total makeover, which they plan to do throughout the summer. With that, Mr. Chairman, with the explanation of the bill and the amendment, I'll entertain any questions.
You've heard the explanation of the bill from the sponsor. Any questions for the sponsor? I had somebody with their hand up first. Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing the bill. You mentioned one word there, impact fee. Does this bill have anything to do with a local impact fee or anything?
Chairman Kiesling.
No, as I was, excuse me, let me get back over to this, to the amendment here. I'll reread it states that the amendment rewrites the subsection 15 of section 1 of the bill to remove the authority for the city to enact impact fees. So,
Representative Warner.
So then it takes away that authority,
Yes, sir.
right? That's my kind of legislation. Thank you.
Chairman Representative Martin.
So, Chairman Kiesling, it takes away the impact fees, but it adds here subways and tunnels.
Chairman Kiesling.
Okay, let me, yes.
I'd like to know where that subway is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I didn't understand.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Chairman Carr, you're recognized. Question has been called on the bill. We're ready to vote on House Bill 3001 as amended. Moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
Chairman and members.
Do you have any wise words for us today, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, I do not today.
Okay, all right. Next on today's agenda is item number 7, House Bill 2797 by Chairman Halsey. Do I have a motion? Got a proper motion and second? Chairman Halsey, I do see we have some amendments. Can you please give us your drafting code?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I have one is 017340.
That is correct. Is that the amendment you're going with, sir?
Well, that is an amendment. There's another one that makes the bill. This one amends it. The other one is 015086.
That is correct. We will take up the first amendment, 17340. Proper motion. Is there a second? Proper second. Okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, legal has just informed me we need to take off the amendment 15086 and place 17340. It rewrites the bill.
Well,
I'm sorry, we got corrected now. I think we got it. We need to place 15086 on the bill first and then place the other amendment. So,
okay. Thank you, sir. That makes sense.
all right. Do I have a motion on the amendment? Proper motion in second. We are going to place amendment number 15086 on the House Bill 2797. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Put that amendment on. We have a second amendment. Can you please give us the drafting code?
017340.
That is correct. I got a proper motion and second on that amendment. Without objection, we'll be voting amendment number 17340 on the House Bill 2797. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The bill is now amended. You're recognized on your amendment bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. When we voted and passed a bill last year to establish a system for Ford Motor to come in the Blue Oval and begin to build, there wasn't much effort to look at housing. And you're going to have between 1,000 and 1,500 people moving in there trying to find a house to live. So this bill deals with how to work through that, at least to start it. And it actually is a system of landowners, developers can purchase land, and they can borrow money from the state of Tennessee or grants as well, also from the federal government to develop infrastructure. And once that's developed, then they bring housing companies in to build houses. There's a few that they have talked to that show an interest of the folks that I've been dealing with, at least, to build houses. And once those are done, they sell them. Then they begin to pay back on the loan, whatever loan that they received from the state of Tennessee. This loan has to be approved by the comptroller and the commissioner of finance administration, and they both have been in the front end of these types of meetings that have gone on for a while to get this far. So that's what the bill does.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I happened to be in committee the other day when you presented this, and I was not on the committee, and so I couldn't talk, but I'm trying to because this is my district, I represent this area. I'm trying to put my arms around the people who are not able to build houses that have lots. And at the same time, I know that there are a lot of local financial institutions and people who have offered this service that you're talking about the state is going to offer. But there are people who already have the opportunities that's got lots to build houses. They're just waiting and deciding if they want to build them or not. So I guess what I'm trying to find out is where this great need that your bill is addressing is in the area. I haven't heard about that. Could you kind of bring me up to date where that need comes from?
Chairman Halsey.
Between 1,000 and 1,500 new houses are going to be what's needed. There is nothing in this bill that prevents anybody from putting in, from competing, from building houses, from receiving the same loans that anybody else does. It just opens the door for the state to have a mechanism that can loan on infrastructure to get the ball going. So it doesn't prevent anybody, as actually they estimate overall, you're going to hire over 1,000 local workers to complete all this.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate knowing that the bill does not prevent anyone, but are we going to ask the state to pay for someone a mobile home?
Chairman Halsey.
Mobile homes are not included, but modular homes are. They can be placed in there.
Representative Shaw for follow-up.
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Next on the list is Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Oz, from the standpoint of the state paying for these loans, not grants. I'm looking at the note and I don't see anything not significant.
Chairman Halsey.
I can't explain that because I've had bills that I thought should be not significant and there was something on them. So I really don't have an answer for that. When I read the note, it says they actually can't calculate it, I guess.
Representative Miller.
Yeah, okay. It's got to be, well, we're talking about state dollars. We're talking about the state loaning these potential developers money. So we don't have any idea what kind of money we're talking about?
Chairman Halsey.
I'm sorry, they did not come up with a figure. I mean, that your report's the same as mine, and I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if it's because they're loaning it and they're going to get it back, that makes a difference. I do not know.
Representative Miller.
Mr. Chairman, will this bill pass from this committee to Finance, Ways and Means?
It will go straight to finance.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions. Is this for infrastructure only, or is this for, you can build a house, you can buy a modular home, you can build a full-blown house, or is it just for infrastructure?
Chairman Halsey.
The loans are just for the infrastructure.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you. So just road, streets, water, sewer.
That's correct.
No homes.
Representative Halsey.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Representative Martin, sorry.
Chairman Halsey, what is the mechanism to determine how the money's paid back, interest rate, those kinds of things? Who determines that?
Chairman Halsey.
It's all this is approved and overseen by the Comptroller of the Treasury and by the Chairman of Finance Administration.
Representative Martin.
So would that be based, like right now, interest rates are XYZ, they're going to be something different next year. Will that be determined based upon what the market is? Is there something that pertains to that?
Chairman Halsey.
I am sorry. I do not know the mechanism that they will use or how they'll calculate it. They did not trust me with that information.
Representative Martin.
But we can be assured this is not an interest-free loan. Would that be an accurate statement?
Chairman Halsey.
If I were the comptroller, you would be correct, but I do not know the answer to that either.
Representative Martin.
I appreciate your honesty. Thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move previous question.
Previous question's been called. We're ready to vote on House Bill 2797. Moving on to finance. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to finance. If you'd like to be recorded as a no, please. see the
Mr.
clerk.
Chairman, I do have some words of wisdom that you couldn't get from Chairman Keesley.
I am so scared to recognize you. But go ahead there,
Don't-
Chairman Halsey.
Don't ever play leapfrog with a unicorn. That's for
Okay.
sure.
And there you have it. Your words of wisdom today. Next on today's agenda is item number 8, House Bill 3000 by Chairlady Littleton. Got a proper motion and second. Chairlady Littleton, I have received a 2/3 majority vote from your governing body, and you're recognized on your bill, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And can I take a privilege, a personal
Absolutely.
privilege? I have two shadows today. They're brother and sister from the County Commissioner, Walter Weekly, and it is Gracie and Logan Weekly. Would y'all stand up and let them make you welcome?
Thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you've been entertained. But you're following around a good one there. She does a really good shadow, so we're pleased to have you in our committee. Chairman Littleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is just a private act that came to me from Cheatham County. And I know one of the main things they want to do is take the wheel tax off of wagons. They've been charging the wheel tax for years, and they just want to remove that from the wagon. Trailers. I'm sorry, trailers. Wagons. Horse and buggy.
You have heard the explanation from the sponsor.
Trailers.
Are there any questions for the sponsor? Question has been called. We're ready to vote on House Bill 3000. Moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad I could wake all of y'all up.
Do you have any words of wisdom for us?
I'm kind of like, maybe I shouldn't.
Okay. Next on today's agenda is item 19, House Bill 2999 by Representative Eldridge. Proper motion and second. Representative Eldridge, I have received a 2/3 majority resolution from your governing body. You're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. First off, I want to thank Doug Garrett for all his work. He worked with our city attorney, Lauren Carroll. What started out to be a change in the charter to match state law on our elections turned into a cleanup of some outdated provisions in the charter. In going through, they found a poll tax in there that had been placed back in the day. A lot of things from 1903, 1907 that was taken out. Give you an idea of some things that were remaining in our charter. We had the city of Morristown was governing disease control, night watch, Brody houses, regulated lights and candles that was still in our charter. They inspected food and drink, inspected lard and meats. They were still inspecting the railroads and the railroad crossings at that time. And so they kind of figured these were kind of outdated, and they just decided to do a cleanup to take care of all of that at one time. So I do appreciate all the work that they did put into this. And that's pretty much what we're doing.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Chairman will take privilege here and ask the question. So are y'all moving from the good old days to the good old days, or?
From the good old days?
Yes.
I figured somebody was wanting to know what a Brody house was. That's the one I was waiting on.
Any questions for the sponsor? Representative Raper? Question has been called on the bill. We're ready to vote on House Bill 2999. Moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Item number 10 on today's agenda, House Bill 2998 by Representative Bricken. Do I have a motion? Proper motion and second. Representative Bricken, I have received 2/3 majority resolution from your governing body, and I do see we have an amendment. Can you please give us your drafting code?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's 017468.
That is correct. Would you like for us to place that on the bill for discussion?
Yes, sir.
Without objection, we will be placing Amendment Code 17468 onto House Bill 2998. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Your bill is now amended. You're recognized on your amended bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill is a local bill from the city of Tullahoma, the largest city in my district, and it's a complete rewrite of pretty much their city charter. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, renew my motion.
And of the sponsor, are there any questions for the sponsor? Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Sponsor, are you removing Brody houses from your city charter?
Representative Bricken, you're recognized.
I don't think they were in there to begin with.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Without objection, we're voting on House Bill 2998 as amended. Moving on to calendar rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman. Committee.
Item number 11 on today's agenda is House Bill 0776 by Representative Helton Hayes. The sponsor has asked that we roll this to the hill. Without objection, roll to the hill. Next on today's agenda is item number 12, House Bill 2467 by Representative Stevens. Proper motion and second. Representative Stevens, I do see we have some amendments. Would you please give us the drafting codes?
17538.
17538. That is correct. Proper motion. Is there a second? Proper second. Would you like for us to place the amendment on the bill for discussion?
Yes, please.
Without objection, we're voting on amendment drafting code 17538 going on to House Bill 2467. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill is now amended. You're recognized on your amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Home affordability is a major problem all throughout the state. And last year, our General Assembly commissioned a study through TASER to look at home affordability and come up with some ideas for ways to help with this area. The report was about 140 pages. I hope that you all skim through there. But one of the recommendations is what this bill does. And very briefly, I'll explain that to you. One of the issues is that as the state grows, the properties are getting rezoned to higher density and from residential to commercial. And as the zoning goes up to higher density or even to commercial, it increases the value of the property, which then causes the person's property taxes to increase. Of course, if it goes from residential to commercial, it increases their assessment also from the 25% to the 40%. So you can imagine if you've got a widow or someone that's disabled and barely getting by on Social Security, and their property gets rezoned to a higher density level or to a commercial, they might be priced out of their home with the property taxes. So what TASER's recommendation was for each county to have the ability to opt in to a program that they could create if they choose to, which would allow them to refund some of the money back to the individual that had their property rezoned if they're still living in it and using it for residential purposes. So it's a completely permissive program. This is something that we believe is new. I don't know of any other place that has a proposal like this out there or has adopted this, but this is something groundbreaking, and we think that it is a way that we can help people keep their homes.
All right, you've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions to the sponsor? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. Without objection, we're voting on House Bill 2467 as amended. Moving on to finance. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to finance. Give me 1 second. All right, folks. Next on today's agenda is House Bill 2996 by Representative Stevens. Got a proper motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Proper second. Representative Stevens, I have received a 2/3 majority resolution from your governing body. I see no amendments. I do see we have a speaker, but you're recognized on your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a local bill that comes from the city of Eagleville. This proposal here amends their charter to increase the residency requirement to run for city council from 1 year to 3 years. Their council unanimously passed this request on to us, and the city manager for Eagleville is here today to explain why they're doing this and answer any questions that you might have.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Any questions? Representative Martin.
Representative Stevens, are there other cities or counties that require 3 years? Or is this going to be a one-off situation across the state? We're doing something special here that we're not doing anywhere else? Or is there precedent somewhere else across the state?
Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not aware of anywhere that has a 3-year requirement. The city attorney thought that there might be 1 or 2 places that had a 2-year requirement. But MTS had not gotten back to him as of today.
Representative Martin.
At the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask legal that question.
Without objection, we will go out of session to hear from legal. We're out of session. Legal, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Houston, Legal Services. I'm not aware of any other cities that would have a longer than that would have a 3-year residency requirement.
Before we go back in session, any more questions for legal? Seeing none, we'll go back into session. And I will recognize next on the list is Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't necessarily have to hear from the people. I probably would like to, but I want to know why. Why so long? I mean, 3 years is a long time to have a residency requirement. As evidenced by the history of the state, we're not there yet, as far as we know. So do you know what the ground rule reason for them to have such a long residency requirement?
Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know Eagleville is a town of about 1,000 people, and it's in between Murfreesboro and Franklin, which are both booming. And the thought process is that as people move in, they want them to learn about the city and to appreciate its small town vibe and I guess maintain its way of living the way that it is. And the city manager could probably answer the reasoning for you better than I can, but that's the 30,000-foot overview.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Miller. Representative Carr.
If it pleases the chairman, could we go out of session and hear the administrator of that? Is she on the list? She's on the list?
She is.
I'd like to hear that reasoning myself, please. Thank you.
All right, without objection, we'll go out of session. Mrs. Helen Riggins from Eagleville will be with us. Ma'am, if you will just find a seat there, press the button. Do you see the red light come on? Give us your name and who you're with, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate all of you allowing me to speak today. Beside me is Fire Chief Armstrong from Eagleville. The City council has been.
Can you give us your name for the
Oh,
record, please?
My apologies. I'm so sorry. New at this, at least in
You're
Tennessee.
fine.
I'm Helen Riggins, and I have been involved in local government for nearly 30 years in several different states. I have been a city planner for a long time, and I'm now currently the city manager of Eagleville. The council has concerns, as Representative Stevens pointed out, that we do sit between a very rapidly growing Franklin and a very rapidly growing Murfreesboro. And we're trying to set our own agenda for our town. We've done a lot of studies on growth planning and how we want our town to grow. We've had people that have moved in and immediately hooked onto sewer and then were ready to revolt because they found out how much higher our sewer rate is and thought that the council had that discretion. We had to explain to them that we were under a federal mandate to put in our step system, and therefore it costs what it costs based on the wastewater's actuarial study of what our sewer costs. That's just one issue of things that have come up, that if you pop right into to the city and you don't understand some of the history of what we've been through as a city, you have the ability to potentially be a one agenda candidate and not understand what all the city has worked hard to create. We are not trying to set any kind of precedent with the state. I'm not trying to ask you to have more work on you. I know that some of you have expressed that this could be something that could be a runaway train. I don't foresee that. I think that it's a city decision to make, that each one decide what is in the best interest of their city. I did look at residency terms, and to be governor, it's 7 years. For a legislator, it's 3 years. And for a senator, it's 3 years. So somewhere, someone felt that having a residency requirement was important for a reason, that you understand what's happening. And as you all know, Tennessee is a rapidly growing state. We have a lot of people coming in from all over the country. We're not trying to stifle anyone's ability to have a voice in the community. We're just asking that they learn our city before they're able to become a council member and maybe not understand all that's at hand. We're in no way asking that they can't be on the Planning Commission, they can't just serve on design review, they can't serve on the Public Safety Committee. There's a lot of ways that someone can be very active in our city without necessarily being able to pop right on the council within 1 year. We did vet this through MTAS. Our attorney did do thorough research, and MTAS said that they didn't find a reason that it could be done or that it
Ms.
couldn't be.
Riggins, can you please finish up for us?
Thank you, and I appreciate the laughter behind me. Yeah, I'm happy to wrap up and answer questions. Thank you for that.
All right. First on the list is Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You had talked about previous experience in other areas and states. So how long have you been there in this particular city?
Ms. McKenzie?
She's not.
Ms. Riggins?
Yeah, you're recognized.
Thank you. I have been with the city for over 6 years.
Representative McKenzie?
Thank you. You know, so you've been there 6 years. Do you think in year 2 you understood the city? I mean, or should you have had all rights and privileges of a city person in year 2? I know you came in an administrative position, but by 2 years, don't you think you understood the city because you were engaged in what the city was doing? And yeah, let me ask
Ms.
something.
Riggins?
Absolutely, I understood, but I have the luxury of being in government for 30 years. So yes, I was right there in the center. I did have the opportunity to speak with a representative of our area, and one concern was a subdivision that's new, and they represented that subdivision. I live in that subdivision, so I understand that there are new people moving in, but I'm not sure that in this fast-paced environment in which we live, that people take the time within 6 months or a year to really understand a city. You're barely getting into your house in that first year. You're barely getting settled. When you talk about 2 years, I think our council might be amenable to a compromise of 2 years instead of 3. I think that that might be something that we would be willing to entertain and hope that maybe you would as well.
Representative McKenzie, follow up.
Yeah, thank you. That's much more palatable to me because these things have a way of creeping, and 3 years just seems to be excessive. So that's, thank you for considering
And
that.
Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I think that you've made some good points and I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Representative Miller. You're not on the list? Okay. Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I wanted to point out when you mentioned that a person to be a representative need to be a resident of 3 years of this state, but only 1 year of the county. So I could move to Shelby County and live there 2 years, move to Hamilton County and only live there 1 year and could be qualified to serve. So I think it's important that we not just say you have to be 3 years to be a resident of the state. You only have to be 1 year of the county. This is one of those things. Recently, we had in a town near my district, a young man who ran for office who was new. And he got beat bad because the people who have lived there for a long time, they knew who they were going to vote for because they knew the people. And I trust the people. I trust the people in your town, my town, towns all across the state of Tennessee to elect the people who know the community. And so I'm wondering why we're not trusting the people to vote for the people that have lived there for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. Why does it have to be something that we put in law that very well could become something that we do city after city after city? So I especially when you think about this body, we only have to be in our county for 1 year to run. Why would we make it where someone has to be somewhere 3 years to run for city council?
Ms. Riggins.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative. I think those are really good questions. I think that I would answer back with, I'm not sure why the legislature has not taken that into account in making law, because you absolutely don't address it, which could be interpreted in the fact that you have chosen to leave that discretion to the cities.
Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and ma'am, how is your council made up?
Ms. Riggins.
In what way do you mean?
Do you have 5 council members and a mayor, or do you have 5 council members and appoint a mayor, or?
We have 7 council members with one of the 7 being a weak mayor form of government. So we are a council manager form of government. The mayor does not have veto power, so therefore he is a weak mayor.
Chairman Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so your mayor does not have veto power, but he does have a vote?
He has a vote, but he's considered ceremonial in nature per our charter.
So if you were voting a 2/3 vote, would his vote count on the 2/3 vote?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, I believe that's what it says. So you've got 7 council members and and one's appointed mayor, but he's a weak mayor. Is that
Well,
correct?
he runs as mayor, so he does run separately as mayor, but he is one of the 7, and he has the same rights and no greater rights than the other council members. He just conducts the meetings and attends ceremonial purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll go back into session. And Chairman Moon, question has been called on the bill. We're ready to vote on House Bill 2996, moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. Bill fails. Folks, we are out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. All bills remaining on the calendar will be rolled to next week's calendar. I need a motion to so moved.